Okay, good everyone. Welcome to another graphics class. Today what I'm going to do is show you how to set up the border of your page. Now I am going to use a fine liner, but it's a 0.6, which I would never usually use for my drawings. But I'm going to show you this so that you can see how the lines that I'm drawing. So I've already established that I've set up my paper with my T-square on my board, and that's horizontal and lined up ready to go. And I'm going to use the side ruler to measure 10 millimeters down. If you don't have that, then you can just use a ruler to measure your 10 millimeters. Now it also has to go 10 millimeters in from the edge of the page. So I'm going to go all the way across, bring that down, use the bottom of my T-square and measure 10 up and 10 across. Then I'm going to use my set square. That's going to come into play. And it's 10 millimeters in from the edge of the page. And what I'll do is, once I've done this, I'll actually take a photo of the page with everything written on, so you can have that in front of you as well, and not just have to watch me draw it up every time. So today we're using an A3 piece of paper, and the A3 paper is positioned in a landscape format. So the next thing we have to do is measure 10 mils up again, and then 10 mils in. So 10 up and then 10 in. I'm just going to put a little dot there, and then 10 up and then 10 in. And that line's going to go all the way across the page. And then what we're doing is we're getting set up for a title bar. It has to go 13 up. So I'm looking at my ruler on my board, 10, 13, 10 in, all the way across. And then I can close that with my set square again. Now the reason I had 13 there is because we're actually going to put in our lettering, so naming what our piece is in the title bar. So that comes 3 millimeters down, and I'm using a pencil this time, and then 7, and then that is where all our lettering is going to go. The next one is measuring out how far, the distance for the name, the title of your piece, etc. Okay, so the first one is we're going to measure 10 across, and that's going to have our student name. Then we're going to measure 8 across, and in here is going to be our class. We're going to measure another 10, which is going to be our title of our drawing. And then this 8 is the date that your piece is completed. So I'm just going to put my T-square and my set square together, use my marker, and make sure that those lines are nice and vertical, and so that you can see them. Now, lettering is something that you need to factor in as well. When you're doing your lettering on your drawing, you need to make sure you're using capital letters. There's no ifs or buts or maybes. You need to use capital letters, and that goes between the 3, the 7, and the 3 millimeters. So in here is our student name. And then the next one is our class. The next one is the title of the drawing. So here we're looking at our page layout. And this is called our title bar. And in the last one, we put the date that it's completed. Okay, that's it for our page layout, and I'll just put some information on this so that you can have a copy of this in your books. So what you've been watching me do is look at different types of line conventions. These are the types of lines and how you do them and where we're going to apply them. So if we look at a construction line, you need to press slightly. I can't emphasize that enough. And it's used to set work out. So if I number this number 1, these sorts of lines here are what you call construction lines. They can stay in there and they're nice and light. The next one we have is what's called a visible outline. And what these do is these show the edge of the object and actually what we need to be seen. So these lines here are called visible lines. The next one is a hidden detail. Now your hidden detail is used to show the builder or the person making the object that there is something hidden in there that they can't see, and with the other information in the drawing that they can pick those out. The next one is a center line, and your center line goes on your in your circle or your arc or your radius, and you can see how you have a long line, a dash, and another line. The next one are your dimension lines or your projection lines. Now you can see here that these are my dimension lines, and as a rule of thumb, they are 2 millimeters from your drawing, and they are 10 millimeters long. And then you've also got to have a look at your arrowheads. So your arrowheads need to be drawn with specific care. So your arrowhead comes here with your dimension line, which is how long? 10 millimeters and 2 millimeters back. And your arrowhead needs to be a nice, tidy arrowhead. Okay, we've got a bit more information on our drawing now because I've been putting in some measurements. But one of the things we need to talk about is just a reminder that your hidden detail is represented by broken lines, and they're approximately 2 millimeters apart with a 2 millimeter gap. The dimensions that you put on your object should not be placed on your drawing. They need to be placed on or inside the dimension of the line. The dimension is never placed between the outline or the dimension line. The next one is all of your measurements need to be in millimeters, and you can write that down so your designer knows that. And the key to your work is to keep your drawing clear and uncluttered. When we're talking about the dimension lines, the thin continuous line is approximately 10 millimeters from your outline or your object. The projection lines approximately start 2 millimeters away here from your drawing, and they're 10 millimeters in length, and then they go back to your arrowhead, which is 2 millimeters back, and your arrowhead is approximately 3 millimeters in length. When you're doing the positioning of your measurements, you tend to have the smaller measurement on the inside of your piece, and then if you wanted the length above that, then the full length of the object would go on the outside of it. And the placement of your object sits on the outside as well. I've also written now the measurement. Oh, no, that'll do. So now that we've looked at line conventions and arrowheads and where to put your dimensions, we need to have a look at how to measure. So I've created some handouts for you that I'd like you to measure in millimeters and fill out in the spaces provided, please. There's your second one. Now it's your third one. This is looking at both an isometric and an oblique view, and again looking at it in an orthogonal view. So you can take the measurements and write it in the spaces provided. Here we have lettering. So what I'd like you to do is copy the lettering that is in front of you. You need to be accurate and you need to be careful. All of your lettering will need to be in capital letters, and you can practice the numerical numbers as well.